Hi folks, today's video is about a book, but it is not a review of that book because I've not read the book, so this is not a review. So anybody who complains in the comments about this being a review of the book that I haven't read, it's not a review. But I wanted to mention some of the books that I've been getting. Now this is the one I want to talk about today, Belly of the Dragon by Ruru Philippe Coupé. And Mr. Coupé is a teacher in the Deshimaru lineage. Taizen Deshimaru was a Zen master from Japan who was a friend of my teacher Gudo Nishijima. He left Japan, Deshimaru did, in I think the early 70s, maybe around then, and taught in France for a while and then passed away there, and he left some students, and Philippe Coupé is one of those students. I also should mention that I got this book, which I'm not going to talk about, but I should mention that I got it because I'm not sure who keeps sending me these books. But somebody sent me Edward S.B. Brown's book, The Most Important Point, too. But maybe we'll talk about that later. For now, talking about Belly of the Dragon by Philippe Coupé. Actually, I'm not going to talk about this book so much as just what the book is about, because I haven't read the book, as I said, but I can tell you what it's about, even without having read it, because I read enough of it to know what it's about. It is about Shinjin Mei. Shinjin Mei is a very famous poem in the Zen lineage. It's often chanted in Zen liturgies. It's chanted sometimes at Tassajara. We don't chant it ourselves, but maybe we should. Maybe we did chant it once or twice, I'm not sure. But it's a real famous poem, and there is a website about it that I will link to below that just gives you so much detail about Shinjin Mei that you never need to know any more about the history or the translations. They give you several alternate translations and all kinds of stuff. But the first line of Shinjin Mei is the thing that some of you might be familiar with, because it's one of these things that gets quoted a lot. And the version by Philippe Coupé goes, "Entering the way is not difficult, but you must not love or hate or choose or reject." Chinese poetry is weird. They don't rhyme their poems. Well, I'm not actually sure. They may rhyme in some level, but it's the way they are presented that is kind of the thing that makes them poetry. And in the case of Shinjin Mei, as with a lot of Chinese poems, it's a series of 4-character sentences. So each sentence has to be written in just 4 characters, 4 words. So if you can imagine, that makes it very difficult to give a kind of detailed thought in just 4 words per sentence. Of course, there's a lot of sentences in Shinjin Mei, but each one is 4 words. So that's why this first line is kind of difficult. I think the way I remember it is, the great way is not difficult, just avoid love and hate. I think that's how I first learned it. And what does he say again? Let's read it again. He says, entering the way is not difficult, but you must not love or hate or choose or reject. Knowing the first bit kind of sort of in my head, I can see why he translated it that way, because he wants to try to give the full thought, but it actually just, the words translated as love and hate are just 2 characters, right? So the point I want to make is that this is kind of a common theme that runs through most of Zen, most of Buddhism. A lot of Advaita Vedanta probably runs through, I would guess, but I don't know much about them, other mystical traditions. Like you could probably find it, like I say, I don't know for sure, in Christian mysticism and Muslim mysticism and Jewish mysticism. I would bet you dollars to donuts, as we say, that you could find it somewhere in there. It's this idea that the way to the great way, the most important way, the way to find the truth, is to avoid love and hate, picking and choosing. And there are different ways of saying this. Early Buddhism is famous for saying that the cause of suffering is desire. And this is just another way of saying avoid picking and choosing. because you'll normally think of, well, at least if you're me and you're 19 years old and you first hear Buddhism, you'll think of the cause of suffering as desire, meaning, oh, if I desire anything, I'll suffer, and I must not desire anything. I must not desire a new bicycle or a sparkly guitar. I remember sitting in Zazen early on in my practice. There was a guitar I wanted, and the entire time that I was sitting in Zazen, I was thinking and picturing this guitar, and then feeling guilty and horrible because I was desiring the guitar. It was a white guitar with a single pickup. Those were big in those days. I don't know what I wanted with a single pickup guitar except to pretend I was Eddie Van Halen, which I was not. But anyway, that's the thought that was going on, and I thought I had to get rid of desire. Well, another way of saying that is the great way is not difficult, just avoid picking and choosing, or love and hate. That's saying don't want things to be any other way than they actually are. Jiddu Krishnamurti came up with the slogan, well, I guess he didn't mean it to be a slogan, but it became a slogan, which was Choiceless Awareness. And I was thinking about that before I made this video and went on Google and went Choiceless Awareness, and I realized that's why I say it's a slogan. I realized, oh my God, poor Krishnamurti. He spent his whole life trying to avoid having his teaching turned into a set of slogans, and now his Choiceless Awareness is like a total slogan among all kinds of people, most of whom probably don't really know what it means. But it's an important idea, and I think a lot of times when we hear this, avoid love and hate, establish choiceless awareness, let go of desire, if you're me anyway, I don't know if you're like me, but when I first heard it, I thought of it as like this horrible challenge, like impossible challenge, like I must forever not prefer anything to another thing. Like if 2 weeks from now I went to Baskin Robbins and I had to choose between strawberry and Rocky Road ice cream, I would be like, oh my God, I'm preferring strawberry to Rocky Road. This is terrible. I'm a bad Buddhist. You know, it's this idea, I think, that desire is a thing that we have and we have to get rid of it. And one time I was at a sesshin in Minnesota, and I think what was the guy's name? Not Dokkan. Oh God, if I remember his name, I'll tell you. He was a really nice guy, and I'm just blanking on his name. But he gave a speech there. He was a Zen teacher in the Minnesota Zen Center tradition, derived from Dainin Katagiri. He'd been a student of Dainin Katagiri. And I don't remember what he said, but when he said it, I realized, oh, that's what that is talking about. It's not that you have to, like, desire is this thing that's within you that you have to rip away forever. It's that at the moment that you stop desiring things, even if it's for a split second, that's when you enter the Buddhist way. The moment that you stop wanting things to be other than they are, or being frustrated by things being other than they are, or loving things this way and hating things that way, that's when you enter into the Buddhist way. Now, of course, you know, the question that always comes up when you talk about this is oh, what if you're in this situation or that situation? And I don't even want to go into it, but people are very clever, and they always come up with some horrifying hypothetical situation that somebody could be in, and you can think of it yourself, and you know, it doesn't matter what it is, but there's endless versions of it, and they'll come up with that, and they'll go, what if you're in this, and then they come up with their horrible situation that somebody's in that they have to get out of. Well, of course, if you're in a terrible situation, it's natural to want to get out of that situation and to prefer something else. So that's fine. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something much more pervasive that just goes on all the time in our lives when we're just here and we want to be somewhere else, or we want to be doing something else, or we want to be a different person, we want to be richer, we want to be poorer. I don't know if we want to be poorer, but well, some people do. You know, Buddhists often want to be poorer than they are. You know, it's that desire to escape from what is, and the moment you can put that aside and just harmonize with the actual situation at this moment, then you establish a kind of peace from which you can start to move. And if it's a situation that needs to be improved, and if you have the capacity to make those improvements, you can make them in a much more clear and better, I can't think of a better word than better, but a better way than you would if you're just kind of picturing an ideal situation over there and driving to get at it. That usually causes us misery. So see the situation as it really is, harmonize with the situation as it really is, give up that desire for it to be other than it is, and then move from there. That's where the great way happens. That's what I think about this book. Actually, that's not my review of this book, but it looks like a good book. I read the first chapter and I liked it, so if the first chapter is like the rest of them, I think I would probably give it a good review, and maybe one of these days I'll read it. But I've got a stack of books that I'm also trying to read for working on the book that I'm working on, which I'm going to go start doing right after I finish this video, so I haven't read the book, but I really appreciate, who was it? Home Press for sending me a copy of it, and I will get to it, and it's really nicely designed and pretty, so I think it's probably going to be good. Anyway, that's what I have to say for today. If you want to support me being able to do these videos more, you can send a donation to the link that will be below on your screen. That is where you can find all the links to my Patreon page and my PayPal address and all this other stuff. And if you're watching on YouTube, direct links to Patreon and PayPal will be in the description below the video. As I always say, if you're financially in trouble or hurting, don't send me money. I don't want to be one of those TV preachers who's like, oh, send me money if it's your last dime. I'm not one of those guys. But if you have it and can afford it, it really, really, really does help me out, because that's the main way I make my living. Not from books, not from lecture tours. It's mainly from donations to people, from people who are watching me on YouTube or listening or watching my blogs or reading my blogs or whatever. So really, thank you very much for that. Sorry to go on for so long about that. We'll see you next time I am able to make a video. See you later. Bye. Have a good time all the time.